Full House, Then and Now, 2026. The San Francisco fog of 1987 didn't just carry the scent of the Pacific. It carried the gilded promise of a family that never existed, a sitcom utopia that minted millionaires out of toddlers and turned comedians into icons. But as the Victorian house at 1822 Steiner Street stands silent in 2026, we must ask, did the fame nourish them? Or did it slowly consume the very souls who taught us the meaning of home? What remains when the studio lights finally burn out and the laughter track falls silent forever? Number 1. Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, $13,600,000. The year was 1987, and 2 9-month-old infants were plucked from a sea of twin babies for a single reason. They didn't cry during the audition. Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen shared the role of Michelle Tanner, the heart of the show, before they could even walk or speak. Their ascent was a fiscal phenomenon. Starting at a modest $2,400 per episode in the first season, their leverage exploded as Michelle Mania swept the globe. By the final season, these children were commanding a record-breaking $80,000 per episode, amassing an upfront fortune of nearly $13.6 million before they hit puberty. They weren't just toddlers. They were a blue-chip commodity in a denim jumper, the youngest self-made millionaires in American history. Fast forward to 2026, and the Olsen twins are the ultimate ghosts of the industry. Now, 39 years old, they have long since buried their acting careers, refusing to return for any reboots or nostalgic reunions. Living in the high-fashion fortress of New York City, they preside over a multi-billion-dollar empire centered around their luxury brand, The Row. In 2026, they are viewed not as former child stars, but as reclusive titans of industry, possessing a net worth that dwarfs their original sitcom earnings. They are the survivors who realized early on that to keep their souls, they had to stop being Michelle and start being the architects of their own silence. Number 2. John Stamos, $10 million to $12 million. In 1987, John Stamos was the leather-jacketed heartthrob the producers desperately needed to anchor the show's sex appeal. Born to a restaurateur father in California, Stamos brought a rock and roll edge to the role of Jesse Katsopoulos, the Elvis-obsessed uncle who turned "Have mercy" into a national catchphrase. As the show's undisputed breakout star among the adults, his financial trajectory was vertical. By the series' peak, he was pulling in a staggering $100,000 to $150,000 per episode, cementing his status as the highest-paid adult on the set. He wasn't just playing a musician, he was living the life of a television rock star, raking in a fortune that most actors only dream of during the golden age of the 1990s sitcom. Now, in the spring of 2026, the 62-year-old Stamos remains the eternal face of Full House, yet he carries the weight of a legacy tinged with bittersweet nostalgia. While many of his peers faded into obscurity, Stamos transitioned into a respected veteran of the industry, still frequently appearing in high-profile television dramas and touring with the Beach Boys. However, 2026 finds him as one of the primary keepers of the Tanner family flame, often speaking of the deep void left by his castmates who have passed. He remains wealthy and active in the arts, but public perception has shifted. He is no longer just the cool uncle, but a soulful patriarch who reminds us that even the most enduring beauty eventually faces the sunset of time.
Number 3. Bob Saget, $8 million to $10 million. In 1987, Bob Saget was a raunchy stand-up comic forced into the role of America's cleanest dad, Danny Tanner. As the show's moral compass, he commanded a salary that nearly matched John Stamos, earning between $75,000 and $100,000 per episode by the series' end. He was the anchor of the household, a grieving widower whose obsessive cleaning hid the immense pressure of carrying a hit sitcom. Saget's wealth was built on the irony of being the world's most wholesome father while remaining a dirty comedian at heart. By 2026, Bob Saget is no longer with us, having passed away tragically in early 2022. He was 65 years old, found in a hotel room while doing what he loved most, stand-up. In the reality of 2026, he is remembered not just as a wealthy TV star, but as the America's dad who left an irreplaceable void. His estate remains a testament to his hard work, but his true legacy is the collective grief of a generation that grew up under his televised wing.
Number 4. Dave Coulier, $7 million to $8 million. In 1987, Dave Coulier brought his manic energy and a trunk full of impressions to the role of Joey Gladstone. A stand-up comedian from Michigan, Coulier became the show's primary source of slapstick relief, living in a basement alcove and teaching a generation to cut it out. As a core member of the adult trio, his financial standing was robust, with his salary climbing to an estimated $60,000 to $80,000 per episode by the final seasons. He wasn't just the funny guy, he was a vital pillar of the show's financial architecture, amassing a fortune through the sheer power of his vocal versatility and comedic timing. In the landscape of 2026, the 66-year-old Coulier has largely stepped away from the frenetic pace of Hollywood. After navigating the highs of sitcom fame and the quiet stretches that followed, he has found a different kind of wealth in voice acting and private aviation. While he still makes occasional appearances at fan conventions, 2026 sees him as a survivor of the Full House era, often reflecting on the deep bonds formed in that fictional San Francisco house. He remains financially secure, but his life is now defined by a peaceful distance from the spotlight, proving that sometimes the best way to keep the magic alive is to walk away from the stage. Number 5. Candace Bure, $7 million. In 1987, at just 11 years old, Candace Bure stepped into the shoes of DJ Tanner, the reliable eldest daughter of a grieving household. Born into an entertainment family in California, she grew up in front of millions, transitioning from a preteen to a young woman on primetime television. Her financial growth mirrored her character's maturity. Starting as a child actor, her salary climbed steadily to reach a peak of $40,000 to $50,000 per episode by the 8th season. She wasn't just a sister, she was the relatable face of teenage America, banking a multi-million-dollar fortune before she was even old enough to vote. Now, in 2026, the 49-year-old Bure is a polarizing titan of cable television. She has pivoted from the sitcom stage to become the Queen of Christmas, serving as a prolific actress and executive producer for faith-based networks. While she sits atop a massive financial empire, her 2026 reality is marked by a sharp cultural divide. She is championed by traditional audiences while frequently clashing with modern Hollywood over her outspoken social views. She remains one of the most successful and wealthy alumni of the Tanner house, proving that even a good girl can build a kingdom by sticking to her convictions, no matter the cost to her reputation. Number 6. Jodie Sweetin, $6,500,000. In 1987, 5-year-old Jodie Sweetin stepped onto the soundstage as Stephanie Tanner, the middle child with the sharp tongue and the iconic "How rude" catchphrase. Born in Los Angeles to parents who were both incarcerated at the time, Sweetin was adopted by her uncle and his wife, finding a stable home only to be thrust into the chaotic brightness of Hollywood. Her talent was undeniable, and by the height of the show's success, she was earning a staggering $40,000 per episode. She wasn't just a child star, she was a comedic prodigy whose paycheck reflected a level of success that most adults would never touch in a lifetime of labor. Fast forward to 2026, and the 44-year-old Sweetin is a symbol of gritty, hard-won resilience. Her journey since the show ended was a public descent into addiction and multiple marriages, a stark contrast to the perfect Tanner household. However, in the reality of 2026, she has emerged as a powerful advocate for recovery and a steady presence in independent films and television. While she may not sit on the same mountain of gold as her co-stars, her wealth is now measured in sobriety and a respected voice in the industry. she remains a beloved figure, viewed by the public not as a victim of child stardom, but as the woman who fought her way back from the brink to claim her own narrative. Number 7. Loughlin, $5,500,000 to $6 million. In 1988, Loughlin arrived in the second season as Rebecca Donaldson, a character intended only for a brief arc, but who became indispensable. A native of New York who began modeling at age 12, Loughlin brought a sophisticated, calming presence to the chaotic Tanner household. Her chemistry with John Stamos was so electric that she was quickly promoted to a series regular. By the final seasons, her salary had surged to match the lead adult cast, earning roughly $100,000 per episode. She was the personification of the perfect woman of the 90s, amassing a fortune and a reputation for grace that seemed unshakable. However, the reality of 2026 tells a much more complicated story. At 61 years old, Loughlin's name is no longer just associated with the kind Aunt Becky, but with one of the biggest scandals in Hollywood history, the Varsity Blues college admissions case. After serving time in federal prison and paying heavy fines earlier in the decade, she has spent the years leading up to 2026 attempting a quiet, persistent comeback in television movies. While she remains wealthy, her 2026 public image is a mosaic of fallen grace and redemption efforts. She continues to act, but the shadow of the legal system remains a permanent part of her legacy, a stark reminder that even the most perfect television image can be shattered by a single choice. Number 8. Andrea Barber, $4,500,000. In 1987, Andrea Barber took on the role of Kimmy Gibbler, the eccentric, sock-shaming neighbor who was never supposed to stay. A California native who started in soap operas, Barber turned a recurring guest spot into a permanent fixture through sheer comedic timing. By the time the final curtain fell, she had secured a series regular status that commanded an estimated $20,000 to $30,000 per episode. She was the quintessential outsider of the Tanner household, earning a millionaire's fortune by playing the girl everyone loved to kick out of the house. Now, in 2026, the 49-year-old Barber is perhaps the most grounded survivor of the Full House era. After the show ended, she famously walked away from Hollywood for nearly 2 decades to focus on motherhood and earning a master's degree in women's studies. While she returned for the revival years ago, her 2026 reality is defined by a quiet life as a writer and an avid marathon runner. She is neither bankrupt nor chasing ghosts. Instead, she is viewed by the public as the rare child star who successfully prioritized her sanity over the spotlight, living comfortably on her past earnings while finding fulfillment far beyond the studio gates. Whether they now command billion-dollar empires, navigate the quiet redemption of recovery, or rest in the eternal silence of a life well lived, these 10 souls remain the architects of our collective childhood. Their bank accounts may have fluctuated, and their reputations may have weathered the harshest storms of reality, but the art they created remains an immortal sanctuary. In the end, the true wealth of the Tanner family wasn't found in a paycheck, but in the echoes of a home that never truly closed its doors. If you want to uncover more dark truths behind the golden age of television, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications now. Don't let the history of Hollywood slip through your fingers. Join us for the next investigation.